Don't judge me, I like to look edgy. Hello everybody, it's me, Sci-Fi, and I am back with a Number Can Limbo Save It episode for the first time in forever. Yeah, this is a little bit awkward. But anyway, I'm back. And today, I wanted to talk about a weapon that I've seen a lot of people give some crap about that is a little annoying to me, and that is the Alternox. The Alternox is a Mastery 8 rifle that fires electric orbs at enemies. It is the signature weapon of Gyre and can only be acquired on the Zariman through its different bounties. Now, the weapon does have a pretty bad reputation as a whole because people on release realized that it wasn't particularly great. But I decided to do some tests myself and play around with it, and I did discover some interesting things about the weapon that led into the creation of this video that you see today. For example, the primary bolts that fire from the Alternox have full body punch through until they hit a physical object on the terrain, meaning that you could have as many enemies as you want lined up and it will still hit through all of them. In addition, the alt fire is meant to be more as a primer, having guaranteed status effects with enough status mods. And most importantly, it can also benefit from condition overload related effects, such as the galvanized mods. Because of all these factors, it clicked with me that the Alternox is meant to be played more like the Cedo, where you prime enemies with the alt fire first and then shoot, but it also behaves like the Phantasma with its full body punch through and relying more so on status effects to deal the damage that it needs. Now, despite all the cool stuff that I just mentioned there are a few problems that the Alternox has that cannot be ignored. For starters, the base damage is pretty low in comparison to other rifles, meaning that we have to rely on weapon buffs to get the most damage out of this thing. And second, the damage is primarily electric. Now, that wouldn't be too bad if we wanted to spec entirely into, say, an electric or corrosive build, which is what we will do here. But it does limit us in what types of buffs and what types of damage types we want to use with this weapon. For example, we can only go with things like corrosive heat, pyroelectric, magnetic toxin, things like that. That aren't ideal because it adds in other damage types into the status pool, meaning that we can proc either electric or viral, or corrosive heat, things like that, so it dilutes it a little bit. But, despite these problems, there are ways of getting around it, which I will be showing now. When it comes to the corrosive heat build, there are a few things that you do need. For example, you need galvanized aptitude so we can get the damage condition overload on this weapon. And you also need 2 of the green shards for a full corrosive strip. That way we can get the most damage possible out of this thing. And on both of these builds, you're going to need a primer of some kind in order to apply status effects immediately for the galvanized aptitude mod to take its full effect. Now, you can go for any primer like the Epitaph or Kuvanukor, but in this case I am actually going to be relying on my MOA to spread status effects, using the Verglass as well as the mod Shivering Contagion so we can spread cold procs. And I have shown in previous episodes, cold is an excellent primer for not only slowing enemies, but also applying a status effect and adding extra crit damage to your attacks, of which the Alternox can crit pretty decently if you want to spec into crits. In addition, for both these builds, we are also going to be using the Reinforced Bond mod for companions that give us more fire rate if a companion shields or overshields are above 1,200. In addition, we are also going to be using this Limbo build for the test footage that you're going to see. Now, as you can see on the corrosive heat build, it's dealing with the enemies pretty easily, especially when we combined in the cold procs from our Verglass on our companion. Now, the viral electric build is where things do get a little fishy because the damage isn't particularly great against armored enemies, which is why you need to bring an armor strip if you decide to go this route, or simply use it against enemies that are not armored or don't have a whole lot of armor to begin with, such as the Corpus, the Infested, and some of the Murmur faction. Now here in an actual mission, the corrosive heat build is pretty easily dealing with the Grineer. It's full stripping them and applying heat procs, which means that we are getting the most damage possible all in one weapon. And combined with my MOA spreading the cold procs, it allows the condition overload to take its effect very, very fast. And even against Acolytes, it's okay. It's not the best. There's obviously going to be better weapons for it. But as a whole, you can just use one single weapon here against the Grineer. Now, the viral electric setup is where things do get a little disappointing. You see, the corpus shields are weak to electric, but viral doesn't work on shields, so I was kind of an idiot here, to be honest. But even so, it's still doing alright, especially once you get past the shields. And even against the Acolyte that spawns here, it can quite easily deal with them. So, in conclusion, the Alternox is interesting. If you give it enough buffs and enough time to understand its playstyle, it can be a pretty good rifle. But I will not deny, despite making this thing usable, I would still recommend using other weapons. Simply because it's a little clunky to use and, well, the Phantasma exists, obviously. But if you want a different choice that is way more stylish and can still deal with anything that it comes across, the Alternox might be the weapon for you. Anyway, that was me, Sci-Fi, talking about the Alternox and why I think it's actually quite underrated. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a wonderful day.